Most of the elite point guards in NBA history were already really good by their third season, which is a great sign for Ja Morant. Ja is only 6'3", but is somehow third in the NBA in points in the paint per game because he has this kind of superpower to just knife his way to the basket. Check out this ridiculousness. There are 4 defenders dotting the paint, and then all of a sudden it's a layup, and if you blinked, you missed all of the brilliance. First, there's his handle, which is an anthology of through-the-legs counters, behind-the-back riffs, low crossovers, and ankle-buckling moves that serve as a passport into the paint. This handle wedges him into tight spaces without picking up his dribble, and when you're quick and can jump, that is difficult to contain. Quickness, of course, is the second ingredient in the Jamel cocktail, where he can change directions like a skier or explode downhill. Here's a high-speed in and out dribble to bust 2 defenders in transition for a lefty layup. This time it's the old UTEP 2-step, and then he spins like a DJ to finish the play, and controlling his body like this makes Ja a pliable penetrator. He slams on the brakes, then goes to an in and out dribble to set up that violent spin, and if there's a third ingredient that makes him special, it's his body control, both on the ground, stopping, starting, or twirling, and in the air, where he hangs and contorts around defenders of any size. The man has kangaroo hops, so even at 6'3", he can make plays deep in the paint. You'll often see him take off like this and launch into big men and just out-hang them in the air with his levitation before finding a decent shot. These are often difficult attempts that are impossible for mere mortals, so they don't always work, but Ja's still shooting an impressive 65% at the rim this year with higher volume than any non-big man in the NBA. He generates that volume by constantly probing for weaknesses in the defense, keeping the dribble alive in traffic, and then leaping into soft spots. Most players can't stress test defenses with a live dribble like this. There are a ton of Portland defenders in the paint, but Ja nearly stops, then restarts, and the seas part. Morant is basically hunting for open space all the time. This looks like a wall, but he waits a beat to slip through a tiny crease, and he's fearless like this. Miami has 5 defenders touching the paint, but Ja's headed into the eye of the storm with a huge stride and a lefty scoop. Notice how he weaponizes those strides after picking up the dribble. Again, there's a defender in his lane, but he just sort of hops through and gets it all the way home. His Euro steps will give you whiplash, smoking Ivica Zubats with that nasty dance step. Think about how hard this is to contain. The slightest opening is an invitation, and if the next defender slides over, Morant burns you with his passing. When I profiled Ja as a rookie way back in the before times, these laydown passes were clearly areas to improve, and I think he's become quite proficient at punishing help defenders on his drives. Here's a great example of how dangerous he is, springboarding into an opponent, but then passing it instead of shooting. One key to high-end passing is a variety of deliveries, and I love how he spits this out at just the right angle and timing. Since he's always probing with a dribble, he's got a live passing round in the chamber if anything should open up. And his deliveries are ambidextrous. This is a left-handed flick off the bounce, yet you'll see him whip skip passes with his right hand without ever having to pick up the dribble. And that speed gives shooters a few extra feet of precious space. Ja is an extraordinary skip passer for his size. The pace he puts on the ball certainly helps, but it's also his vision and court mapping. I love this play where he's waiting for something better than his Steven Adams short roll, hits a wall, and knows the far corner is the best. Most players will go to the near corner here, but the lengthy Jared Vanderbilt is ready to pounce on that, and instead it's a wide open look. Morant's leaping also helps in these spots, where you can get deep in the lane and then create a better angle for cross-court passes. And when I say deep, I mean deep, driving into the trees and then spraying it out at the last minute in lieu of a crazy shot attempt. His hang time and mental pictures of the floor allow him to abort at the last possible minute and still create good offense. Because of this, he doesn't miss too many passing chances. He sees this one late and tries to come back to it, and if he were a few inches taller, this brilliant little idea would have worked. He also could have head faked to keep the defender's hands down, and Morant does this from time to time, sending Aaron Gordon the wrong way here for a practice shot in the corner. This one is an overt manipulation, but as Ja hangs, he's waiting for these defenders to commit, and that's a seriously high-level pass under duress. With a strong passing game and that relentless rim pressure, it's hard to name 10 better on-ball playmakers in the league right now, and our estimates of shot creation for teammates portray Ja as a premium playmaker with the ball in his hands. He does get stuck sometimes when he tunnels too far into the paint, and that can lead to deflections and turnovers, and here's where a few more inches of height would make such a difference, opening up his outlet valves instead of being swallowed by taller players in the lane. He doesn't always leave his feet in these spots, and he does fall back on a little mid-range game like this, and a key part of Morant's growth this year has been expanding this short mid-range. He's taking and making more shots at the middle level than in the past, and these little push shots and floaters are a solid option when the rim is barricaded off. They aren't the highest efficiency shots, he's making them at 43%, but they do offer a nice counter in the paint against big defenders. Ja's own physical development helps him here too. He is broader than he was 2 seasons ago, so he can keep his balance while holding off opponents in the paint. His shooting from behind the arc could be the real game changer, with his volume and accuracy both trending up. We don't have a large sample yet, but given his touch, proficiency from the line, and his age, remember he just turned 22, I do expect Morant to grow as a three-point shooter and develop a pull-up that can complement his dribble drive game. Morant's volume scoring and playmaking puts him in impressive company. In my historical box score model, there have only been 8 third-year point guards since 1980 with a better offensive box plus minus than Ja's current mark, and these guys made a combined 44 All-NBA teams. On defense, I'm not sure that much has changed since his rookie season, where he struggled navigating screens and displayed some of the lapses he was criticized for in college. When dodging screens, the primary problem he has is a sort of bouncy, upright jog that makes him easier to pick and disconnects him from his man. When he crouches into a stance, he can get flat-footed, and that makes it hard to slide around the outside leg of a screener, and he's way too far behind Chris Paul for that coverage. On this one, he's trying to wedge that lead leg around the screen, but just botches his steps, and then compounds it by gambling for a steal, which he will do sometimes. More of Ja's gambles look like this, where he's leaving his feet to make a heroic play on a pass, or reaching from behind for a steal, and that is not the greatest effort on a closeout, my friends. Here's a more subtle example where he gets flat-footed at the point of attack and then swipes for a steal, and that gets him behind the play, and then he doesn't get back in front of the ball, and the whole thing's a disaster with Steven Adams. So his technique is an issue, but so is his engagement and awareness. He's frozen for a beat after Conley cuts here, and that puts him way behind the play, and again, not a textbook closeout. Against less of a shooter like Ricky Rubio, Ja could go under all of the screens, and that's an easier chore for him and a pretty solid defensive possession. It takes desire and effort to position yourself early on these kinds of plays, and I'm not sure if Ja has that much in his gas tank on defense, given his enormous offensive load and taxing style of play. He certainly has the agility to be a better defender on the ball, and there are possessions where he slides pretty easily with his man. Away from the ball, I'd say he's okay. He's early on this critical pick and roll rotation and then doesn't leave prematurely, so instead a weak three-point shooter ends up with a miss. On this play, I'd like him to make that rotation a touch earlier, but at least his vertical athleticism offers some resistance against a big man. And that's the thing, it feels like Morant can be a positive defender. This was goaltending, but I don't care because he's at the top of the square and he'll do that and then on the next night completely let his guard down against a Nikola Jokic cutter. I think his best attribute on defense right now is jumping into passing lanes with active hands, and he'll specifically target passes over the top by leaping in the air like this. On more traditional plays off the ball, his quickness allows him to close windows quickly, and that could help him as a weak side defender in the future. The Grizzlies have actually been better without Morant in the early part of this season, especially on defense. But there are two huge reasons for that. First, they played an easy schedule when he was out with a knee sprain. And second, their three-point shooting luck on open and wide open threes has been off the charts, worth about 8 points per game on defense and 3 more on offense compared to how they shot with Morant in the lineup. Right now, I do think he's one of the best playmakers in the league, and his rim pressure is difficult for even good playoff defenses to contain, which will only make him more valuable as the shooters around him improve. His defensive shortcomings drag down his overall value, but even with that, I currently view Ja Morant as a strong all-star level player. To support this channel, check out patreon.com/thinkingbasketball. We have proprietary stats, extra content, a community, and more. I've had a lot of people lately ask me about whether Morant is a negative because of Memphis's big run without him. I think it's mostly noise. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope wherever you are watching, you are having a wonderful, happy, and safe New Year. Thanks as always for your support, and I hope you are having a great day.